everyone, and welcome back to our e-commerce exchange. So we recently did a webinar on prepping for Prime Day, and it was pretty broad in the sense of how do you prep, what products do you want to sell, promotions, advertising, DSP. And what we wanted to do today is bring on our advertising experts to double click into the DSP portion of prepping, executing, and then the follow through coming out of Prime Day for DSP efforts. So super excited to welcome again Whitney Weaver, our director of marketplace ads, and Michael, our senior manager of DSP. Thank you both for joining today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
So starting really high level, can you guys talk through what you're thinking about from a DSP perspective when it comes to Prime Day?
Yeah, so from a high level perspective, I think using DSP for Prime Day is essential to building up your audiences, building that retargeting list, making sure you're getting in front of customers ahead of the event so that on the day of, they're buying your product. You're top of mind. You're the first thing that they're putting in their cart and they're purchasing. This year might be a little bit different. We've heard that Prime Day is going to be 4 days instead of the usual 2. So that does, when we're thinking about budgets and flighting, we want to take that into consideration. Also, shopping behavior. How is that going to affect shopping behavior?
Yeah, so Whitney, you mentioned the 4 day instead of the 2 day. When we think about the longer Prime Day or the extended Prime Day, how does that affect spend distribution, and how are you thinking about leading in and during and then leading out?
Yeah, so the lead in and lead out strategy still absolutely applies. We really want to take those 3 to 4 weeks ahead of the event to build those retargeting lists, making sure that we're reaching new audiences, reaching out to old customers who have maybe purchased in the past and want to purchase again during the event. And the goal is to make sure that we're delivering at maximum capacity when it comes to retargeting on Prime Day, because those are the highest intent customers at that time. So during the event, it's really important to make sure that we're reaching those customers through our retargeting efforts, showing them multiple different creative messaging, and just really highlighting the event overall. And we really look at the different shifts between going into the event, heavying up on that awareness and consideration. Maybe it becomes 60, 70, maybe even 80% of the spend those couple of weeks going into it. And then during the event, you're switching maybe more to like a 50-50 split, putting more into retargeting. And then we know following the event, there's a lot of opportunity for building new audiences, retargeting those who did or didn't purchase during the event to just continue that conversation with shoppers.
Yeah, and I would just add, changing it from a 2 to 4 day event is new for Prime Day, but Amazon is, not shy of having events, and there are other events that they've had that are multiple days. I think of, Beauty Hall or even Cyber 5. So we can look back at some of those historical trends and shopper behaviors to understand, what we might look to see come this 4 day Prime Day event. And typically what we do see in those more extended selling events is, really prioritizing day one. Right, that's your folks that are deal seekers, they're brand aficionados, they're waiting for these sales to happen, as well as day 4 are really, from a budgeting perspective, the 2 main ones that we like to focus on. Day 4 being the folks that are procrastinators like myself that have been, price shopping around and been on the fence. So really prioritizing budgets for day 1 and 4 is what we've seen to work really well in these extended selling periods. And days 2 and 3 will be, active and higher than normal volume, and above average and steady. And at the end of the day, folks are used to these deals. This is not something new to them. And I think it's going to be a huge event overall.
Yeah, I know that in our webinar, we talked about basically every Prime Day being bigger and bigger than the year prior. Amazon loves to say that. So switching gears just a little bit, thanks for talking about the spend allocations, Michael. If you're switching gears to the ad units, how do we think about those, whether it's lead in, during, after, whatever, what are best practices when it comes to the ad units?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think a lot of folks, when they're looking at DSP, really focus on, the display tactics, the tried and true. A lot more folks are diving into online video and streaming TV. But, the DSP has a number of different ad units that I think could be very effective for lead in, during, and lead out. So a couple things that we're focused on for this year is audio being one of them. So they've made a lot of enhancements to the DSP in regards to audio, production of audio. The barrier to entry there has been brought way down to where you can create audio spots in a matter of minutes in the DSP at no production cost. So the barriers to entry there are very low. And when I think about being able to use an audio spot, a 15, 30-second spot to really speak directly to your shoppers, you have 100% share of voice, whereas some of the display tactics are very busy leading into these events. So audio is one that I think we're particularly keen on. But at the end of the day, you want to have more touch points. The more touch points, the better, whether it's an audio, a video, or a display. So I think they've made it very easy to diversify your media outside of just your true display tactics in the DSP.
For those that are not the DSP experts, when you talk about audio placements or ad units from a consumer side, where would consumers find those? Is that like podcasts or where?
Yeah. So the Amazon DSP you can serve on podcast. I particularly like serving on the Amazon, your traditional streaming audio. So there is the free tier of Amazon Music, which has a huge user base, and really the where these ads are serving predominantly, and where we like to focus is on those smart devices. So those in-home Alexas that Amazon has a few of them out in the wild. So for shopping events like this, the ability to serve an audio ad during a peak event with a call to action of, say, Alexa, add to cart, it's really a game changer in terms of that engagement aspect. So really focusing on the smart speakers, but serving across streaming audio and podcast is an opportunity as well.
So you already spoke a little bit about the audio piece being off Amazon, right? And off the Amazon.com site, right? But what other type of on Amazon or off Amazon placements are you really leveraging during the tentpole events?
So yeah, I can step in here. So when we're thinking about using off Amazon inventory, so these are your third-party exchanges, one of the really cool audience tools that we have within the DSP is contextual keyword targeting. So, during those events or leading up to those events, there's always lists of like what's on sale on Prime Day or best tech on sale on Prime Day. And so we can start creating lists for contextual targeting where we're looking for those types of keywords that we can then serve to shoppers who are interested in this type of category or looking for a product in this type of category. And that's serving on those third-party sites where they're reading the news or checking the weather and or looking at those particular Prime Day lists, and we're showing up there right next to those lists. So that's a great way to use the off Amazon placements. Also, when we're looking at third-party inventory, we really want to be conscious of curating the site lists that you're focused on, making sure that you're not serving ads on lists that haven't performed in the past or maybe don't have the most appropriate content. Usually there's a lot of those in place for brand safety reasons to start with. Amazon's great about that. But really, as we're going into a really high traffic time, it's important to make sure you're curating that list and serving those ads to the most effective sites. Third party is also a little bit cheaper than Amazon. As you can imagine, people who are on the Amazon site, they're more expensive, they're high intent. Brands really want to make sure that they're getting in front of them. But using the off Amazon inventory is a great way to have some more cost-effective placements as you're getting shoppers to come to the site.
Can you show us an example of what those off Amazon placements look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is an example of where those ads might show up in the wild across different websites. And so this is really, reaching people during the everyday browsing, surfing the internet, and getting them to come back to Amazon. And then on the flip side, when we're looking at those on Amazon placements, this is where you're seeing that directly on the .com site, whether you're on your desktop or on your phone on the app. And this is really focusing on shoppers who have the high intent. They're obviously on the site to shop or do product research. And so making sure that you're showing up on the site during those big tentpole events is also really important. But, factoring in the cost increase when you're serving on the actual Amazon site. So I think having a mix of both is crucial because we're bringing people to the site and then retargeting them or, increasing their consideration while they're doing their shopping on site.
Shifting gears a bit, everyone's talking about AMC or Amazon Marketing Cloud. Sounds like it's a super powerful tool and still changing, evolving. And I know our team has gotten into it. And then, it feels like every other week we have a new report that we can run. So what are some of the key reports that you have for your brands right now, set and ready to go for Prime Day within AMC?
So I think the biggest one is because of the amount of traffic that comes in around Prime Day, looking at customer lifetime value through AMC is really important. And we can even see trends looking at our clients in the past, getting a lot of new customers in July, and then what they buy in the subsequent months, and just like what that impact has on the business overall when you acquire that customer during Prime Day. Usually we see that there's more purchases, a higher purchase rate of that cohort that buys in July for several of the brands we look at. So while it might be more expensive to be running DSP, to be running your cost per click advertising, we can sort of make a case for the cost per acquisition during July because we know that long term it's going to help the business overall. Additionally, a couple other reports that we've used is like a gateway ASIN report where we're understanding what are those products that bring in the most new to brand customers. What is the product they're most likely to try first from the brand? And that's a great way to kind of layer that in with that lifetime value. So you know that you're reaching them with a product that tends to bring in new to brand customers and then hopefully keep them for a long time. And then ultimately using the AMC to build custom audiences, using your past purchasers. Have they purchased certain products? Have they been going to your product pages 3 or 4 times over the last couple of weeks? How can we retarget them? Are they searching for particular terms quite often? And make sure that we're building audiences using the AMC so we can retarget them or reach them before, during, and after the event.
And Winnie, just to clarify, that type of, I guess, detailed reporting of how often customers are attending the pages, those are not insights you can get through the DSP. You have to be using AMC to leverage that data.
Correct. In order to build that, you'd have to use AMC to say, I want to reach people who have been to my product pages 3 or more times. DSP will give you the aggregate of the detail page views, but you're not at that like individual shopper level.
So in a perfect scenario, you're getting a report out of AMC that says something like, hey, you need 7 touch points. When customer gets 7 touch points, they're X% more likely to convert. And then you're setting up audiences or retargeting that, okay, now that we know it's 7 touch points, let's create an ad only towards those that have visited our page 7 times or more.
Exactly.
Cool.
Or it can even be on the flip side of that. So you're saving some money if after 10 touch points, if they haven't purchased, that the likelihood of them to purchase goes down significantly. We can say if they've been to the page 10 times or interacted with our ads 10 times and haven't purchased, they're probably not going to. So let's exclude them from that audience and, focus on the folks that are, in that 4 to 7 range of touch points.
And then the reports coming out of AMC, I think one of the struggles I've seen with some of the brands is that when you're an advertiser, all of this data is like super great to get into, right? And it's very technical and it's like, it's perfect. But when we're trying to summarize this and then present it to someone who's not in the ad platform, maybe it's a CMO or someone on the executive team, how do you think about like consolidating those reports? Is there a way to do that within AMC, or is that something that we're doing on behalf of our clients so that they can use those internally?
Yeah, so we're doing that on behalf of our clients internally. So we work with a great partner, Xnerta, that has a wonderful platform that does some really great visualization of AMC reports. Generally, if you're going into the UI and pulling reports, it's a big spreadsheet of numbers, which can be helpful, but to really be able to visualize it and draw those key points out, it can be challenging. But using a tool like Xnerta really allows us to get those insights quickly, give a really good visual of what that means and what the actions are coming out of that.
Cool. So talked about lead in during digging in a bit more into the lead out side. How are we thinking about the segments or the audiences post Prime Day?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, again, going back to AMC and their advanced retargeting capabilities, it's no shock that retargeting is going to be a big piece of your strategy coming out of the event. You have the ability to go after folks that have abandoned their cart, that you got interested in the product, maybe they just didn't quite get across that finish line. So retargeting is huge. And then just from a high level, you're getting so much data into the platform over this selling event that you're going to be able to leverage for years to come. I think they just recently announced that this data will be in there and leverageable for 5 years. So really, understanding that this is going to be stuff that you can use going forward, whether it's taking your best customers that purchased during this tentpole event and going after them during future tentpole events, or lookalike audiences seeded from those customers that were very leaned into these selling events. And then the last thing that I like to think about and would be interested in looking at from a data perspective is, we talked about path to purchase and what touch points are really resonating with the clients. And if in fact we are diversifying our media mix, and we're showing folks a streaming TV ad to start, and then following it up with an audio ad, and then maybe they get to the product page and a retargeting ad, but really understanding in that path to purchase, what is the optimal path, right? So you take some of those learnings to leverage on future tentpole events to understand is streaming TV the gateway? Is that where we're getting folks into the funnel? Is audio a gateway? Is it a more of a conversion type tactic? So I think really once the selling season ends or the event ends, I think the work really just begins in terms of sifting through the data so that you can iterate on it and hopefully improve on what it is you're doing for the next tentpole event, because I think we all know that Amazon will have more.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question for you both is mostly around the tariffs and then how those tariffs are impacting Prime Day. So with a lot of our brands, right, it's soft lines, it's apparel, even some of our hard lines, or even a little bit of CPG is obviously coming from overseas. How are you thinking about the profitability for our brands and how those tariffs may impact the way that we deploy our dollars?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're thinking about tariffs and speaking with our brands about this, one area that we're looking at is, where do we have product coming from somewhere else where it's not going to impact the profitability? And so can we switch to advertising those products, increasing the production or inventory on those products to make sure that we have something available to keep the brand top of mind during these tentpole events? Another way to think about it is going back to that LTV, or customer lifetime value report, and just understanding that maybe this isn't profitable now when we're looking at both tariffs as well as discounts, but long term, if we're able to acquire 1,000 customers during this event, for example, what does that look like long term, and is it worth that a little bit of a hit right now, so that long term, come holiday season, we're able to really capitalize on those customers and make it more profitable over a longer period of time.
So maybe you're driving more awareness short term to then retarget them once we have a healthier stock position later in the year.
Yeah. And I would say that especially for CPG, anything that's replenishable or has accessories or filters, anything like that, where there's kind of like an upsell or cross-sell opportunity, that's always a good place to start, because that someone's going to have to buy another one down the line. And so how do you make sure you get them into that funnel and you're able to reach out to them when things are hopefully more profitable in a few months?
Yeah, I think that the outside of the Amazon side, just in general, the tough part about going into Prime Day and having risky stock positions is that once you go out of stock on Amazon, it isn't just like you lose the sales on that one day, right? You lose the sales on that one day. Because of that, you lose traffic. Then you decrease in your positioning on ranking for your bestseller ranking. And then by the time you go back into stock, it takes you even more ad dollars to get back up to where you were even on the organic side, right? So I think we're talking to brands a lot about this kind of like balance between organic and paid as you're going out of stock or in stock. And then, there you could be making the case of, hey, we know we only have 60 days worth of inventory. After that, we're going to stock out. Okay, let's bring back that budget on these products anyway, so that we mitigate the stock out and repurpose those funds for other products that may have overstock, or like you said, Whitney, products that we know we have tariffs that aren't as high as other places that we manufacture. Whitney and Michael, thank you both for joining us today. I know you're super busy. It's like the second busiest time of the year prepping for Prime Day. So really appreciate it and looking forward to seeing the results.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.